she's a 100-a-night call girl, but she was accidentally picked up by a billionaire's son. To prove his sincerity, the boy dragged her into a church at 12 midnight, under the solemn witness of the Godfather. They got married, but the girl never dreamed that this rich man would not change her life. Honora's family was not happy. She had a very unhappy childhood. Then her mother remarried. This left Honora in an isolated situation. She was left to fend for herself and her sister. They rented a room to make ends meet, which forced her to become independent at an early age, but without a higher education. Honora found it difficult to find a decent job, but luckily she could dance, so she turned this talent into a livelihood and became a dancer. One day Honora was resting in the lounge. The boss burst in and said with an anxious face, "There's a Russian outside." He asked for a Russian-speaking girl to entertain him, and it so happened that Honora's grandmother was Russian, so she could barely understand some Russian. She didn't want to work overtime after a hard day's work, but the boss emphasized with a serious face, "This guest is very important." Honora had no choice but to work overtime, and as a dancer, she knew in her heart there were only two ways out for her: either find an honest man to marry while she's young, or hit on a rich man and marry into the family. After seeing the guest in her boss's eyes, Honora adjusted her state and warmly greeted. Under the boy's guidance, she tried to communicate in Russian. The boy was quickly attracted by Honora's charm. They had a good conversation. At the end of the day, the boy left his phone number and hoped to ask her out sometime. Honora gladly accepted the invitation, because she could tell from the boy's dress he was not a simple man, but poverty still limits Honora's imagination. The next day, Honora was invited to the boy's house. Just walking in, she was shocked by the mansion. The villa is extremely luxurious. Then Honora rang the doorbell. After entering the villa, she looked at the lavish and huge bedrooms. Honora was at a loss for words for a moment. In the eyes of the rich, completely unable to understand what poverty means, the boy enthusiastically showed Honora around the garage. Honora had previously thought the boy's family was rich, but after seeing the luxurious collection, she realized that she had been too conservative. Honora was curious. How could a boy so young own so much property? After a short conversation, Honora found out the boy's name was Ivan. His father was a Russian arms dealer and the richest man in the region. Knowing all this, Honora was shocked by the power of Ivan's family. Early the next morning, Honora didn't hesitate to approach her boss and asked him for a full week's vacation. After getting approval, she rushed back home and started packing her bags. Ivan had sent a car waiting for her. Honora got into the car and soon arrived at Ivan's mansion. From the moment she stepped into the mansion, Honora began a new life. In these days, Honora really saw the life of a rich man. She was amazed by every experience. In order to have fun, Ivan even showed a lot of luxury. He flew Honora to Las Vegas in his private jet. After arriving in Las Vegas, they stayed in the top presidential suite. After experiencing all this, Honora deeply felt the gap between the rich and the poor, experienced an unprecedented sense of fulfillment. But the good times always fly by. After an intimate encounter with Ivan, Ivan's face showed a hint of sadness. He said that the days he spent with Honora, he felt immense joy, but now he had to return to Russia to take over his parents' company. And then Ivan took a different turn. He mentioned that if he could marry an American, to become an American citizen, and not have to go back to Russia, and even get rid of his parents. Ivan's eyes fell on Honora. Honora advised him not to joke, but Ivan just stood up.